I like the gyrocopter pickup from CSW because it does give them that some more damage that I feel that they were lacking out of the rest of the draft, and Clockwork does end up being a decent answer to the Bane here. So this is looking a little bit more standard for CSW. The one sort of, I guess, anti-synergy dimension for the Winter Wyvern is that with the way that Winter's Curse works with the new damage reduction, you don't want to actually drop all of your AoE on top of the little stack of heroes that get Winter's Cursed.
Yeah, you kind of have to time cooldown Requiem and things like that sort of
very carefully.
Yeah, exactly. Winter's Curse with Nightmare. How does that interaction work? If you Nightmare a target and Winter's Curse just so happens to go on them, and the teammates start attacking, Nightmare still stays, right?
I'm guessing it's if you Nightmare the person who gets Winter's Cursed. I'm guessing that the Nightmare would just get passed onto the first person who tried to attack the target. But Nightmare does disallow you from attacking, and the Winter's Curse target doesn't fight back, notably, because they're stunned, of course. So I think it's a pretty good way if, you know, say your Lesh gets hit, you can put the Queen of Pain under if she happens to get caught and prevent some damage. That's a pretty neat interaction that I didn't think of there, Durka, but I think that we could potentially see this game as we load ourselves in here. I guess the other thing to talk about, well, finally we've got the last pick Dazzle coming out from MVP, and the question becomes now how they are going to set their lane. The aggressive tri-lane was very successful last game, and it could be again this game against CSW. CSW have the solo offlane Clockwork, who is not the scariest 1v1 hero, as we've talked about multiple times over the course of this qualifier. They've got a pretty good tri-lane of their own, and if they go for the aggressive tri-lane, yes, Bounty Hunter is going to be able to roam around a little bit, but kind of the same story as the support Quap in the previous game. He is not going to help them win the try-v-try. So it puts a lot of pressure on the Bounty Hunter to help go and win the other lanes if this aggressive tri-lane does end up happening. And MVP right now running down as 5 heroes. KP's got the Ringer protection, and I feel like that is a little bit of a clue towards what they're looking at here. Though they could also end up rotating all the way towards top lane, since it's just going to be your one position Lesh one way or the other.
March with the Mango on his Spirit Breaker.
Oh yeah.
Kind of interesting. You know, the HP regen, sure, good enough on their Spirit Breaker. Mana, get an extra charge out there, just in case you do want to sort of charge to a lane, charge back, and keep yourself going around. Wedding Crash looking for this top rune. A little bit scary though. Okay, Bane and the Leshrac don't actually want to contest, expecting CSW to be up on his high ground, waiting for the Shadow Fiend.
Yeah, I think CSW are a little bit afraid overall of what was going on, since the Bounty Hunter did scout out everybody from MVP rotating down through their jungle, and they kind of lost tabs on them somewhat. So I'm just going to play it safe on the runes here. It's going to be 1-for-1 overall in terms of what's being brought out immediately. Do we actually have anything getting delivered? But oh, this is hilarious. Okay, so QO wants an extra set of tangos, but he doesn't want to bring the courier out because they haven't seen the Bounty Hunter just yet. So Febby is the courier.
We see this so often now, but you know, more often with the bottle coming out,
yeah,
actual supports going and acting as a courier, ferrying it out to them. But great play here. The sentry is placed just to watch out for that Bounty Hunter. With a lot of Chinese teams nowadays, the mid heroes get given sentries, both of them. Yeah. The team with the bounty and the team that is against the Bounty Hunter. Just to have the battle of sentry wards in mid lane, try and give you that little bit of an advantage with Godon. Maybe able to move towards mid lane. Actually, this Dar Observer ward blocks out the pull camp. Godon gonna try and de-ward that out and will succeed.
I kind of like Febby being the one to come here and place in the sentry ward, because mid lane always going to immediately check your opponent's inventory once they come out of fog, so you know exactly what you're up against, sort of base damage wise, and yeah, what kind of competition you're facing for last hits. But you're also going to be figuring out if there's a sentry ward there, and you know, CSW, it's a minor thing, but Wedding Crash may have called out to Godot that, oh, okay, there's no sentry ward on this Queen of Pain. Maybe there isn't one here on mid. Maybe you can make a couple of attempts that would end up going awry, and would have ended up being wasted time for Godot. So it's only, you know, it's only mind games if your opponents are really playing, really paying close attention. But I think that is going to work out somewhat here. It looks like Godot might be more interested in heading up towards top. There are already a couple of stacks being set up by MVP, notably a triple stack over on the big camp. And it looks like Febby is just kind of setting up shop here.
Well, March mid. Down at bot lane, gets his charge off and will hide behind this tier 1. But that haste.
It's a nightmare on Tootie. Yeah, he gets stunned up, but that's going to be about it. But Godot comes running in from behind, eats a brain sap, was running right through that right through that sentry ward there. And Nuts actually only just placed that one. So it looks like he just kind of had a sense of what the Bounty Hunter was hoping to get done here. And I really want to commend MVP on how they've dealt with Godot so far. He hasn't managed to steal any experience from anywhere. He hasn't got any successful ganks down. And things are not looking good for him on the whole as we get started. And also, he doesn't have the easiest lanes to gank for either, necessarily. Which is tough. Yeah, there's no one to really slow, set up stuns or anything like that. Bot lane maybe is the easiest in terms of his teammate, Rocket Barrage and that Winter Wyvern. But March is definitely not the easiest target to go on. Just because he can charge away, he is naturally tanky with 777 HP, 5 armor and a stab shield. And he can't kill the Queen of Pain unless she blinks in, and top lane, MVP, as we saw earlier, already have things kind of locked down. So I don't know what he's going to do. I guess he can start trying to stack up the jungle a little bit. And then once the Shadow Fiend is ready, he can clear. The Shadow Fiend can clear out the stacks mid. Godot can take a little bit of the experience and also maybe soak the mid lane in the meantime. Looks like March is going to be the target down here on bottom lane, getting slowed up somewhat. Chains comes running in looking for the Rocket Barrage, but March ready to charge away. It does cost him quite a bit of regen, and won't be able to return to the lane immediately, but it gets eyes on the Bounty Hunter once again. They know what he's up to. And that's going to make mid lane and top lane both feel quite a bit safer. And Q even just going to donate some bottle sips as they make their way down for this 4-minute rune. Godot does manage to snag the bounty rune, but might end up going down here. Spectre Blast flies in, slows things down somewhat. They don't have any more anti-invis. Another scream from QO is looking for it, but Godot's just going to have to limp away into the trees. And looks like that's going to be it for him. Doesn't want to buy a TP and TP all the way back to base. Looks like he'd rather just walk back and hold onto the gold for now. Why is he heading? He's sticking around. I think he's just wandering all the way back. Is he afraid that somebody's actually trying to find him, or that there might be a random ward or something? He did a little loop around his tower, like sort of wandering around, but I'm not sure. Maybe a loose cannon charge from March or something like that. But March is battling up against 343 down here. Not going to be trading hits. To one, but now turns, slows him down. Oxyburn and Rocket Barrage. March, where's he charged? Time to bail on this. The home missile is going to be chasing him. What's your plan? Charge away. The missile follows. Maybe it gets taken out by. Okay, he's signaling out now. Febby should be able to come over and take it. No. No. TP. Okay, he's good. I don't think it would have killed him anyway after that Shadow Wave from Febby. It's only level 1, right? And maximum damage 50, damage 125. No, I don't think it would have gotten him. End of the day. And March just kind of charging right back to bottom lane. Not too concerned after his little misadventure. In terms of your overall farm, Shadow Fiend is getting destroyed mid lane. 36 and 19 against an 11 and 1 Shadow Fiend. Does he have any stacks? Wedding does have a nice stack set up over on the big camp, so that's looking good for him. And same kind of story over on the MVP side. I think Godot's added a little bit of this out. And ideally they get their Shadow Fiend over there or their Gyrocopter over there, and they steal some of that for themselves. But that's a very difficult play to make against this MVP lineup, especially the Spirit Breaker. And speaking of SB, March coming charging in on mid lane, considering something on Wedding Crash, but is going to end up pulling out at the last moment as he realizes that only Febby is actually here to help him. QO has taken his double damage rune, and he's going all the way up to top. There is a decent amount of gold over on this Clockwork, though. 1,000 gold with only 7 last hits. Done a pretty good job up on this top lane. So, what do you look for on this Clockwork? Do you go for an early 4-stab or Febby mid lane? Godot does get charged as he turns. Febby turns back with the Poison Touch. Arctic Burn, a decent amount of damage, but it's just not enough. They don't have that finisher. One raise would have done it. Neither mid here in attendance at mid lane here, so no kills to be found. And sorry, what were you saying about the as that fight broke out?
the stacks over for the Leshrac? I can't remember what I was saying.
Gonna jump in. I think it was 2D having a decent amount of gold,
yes,
but he's dead, so. And a nice little nightmare from Nuts just to make 100% sure that Kyo is going to survive that tower shot. I think he could have got a bit more of a sip in. Yeah, thank you, Drop Bear.
It's been a long day, but yeah, you're right. Clockwork. Do you want an early force stab? Do you want him to finish? He's actually going to try and cause Magic 6.
I just wanted to buy a Glimmer Cape, but anyway, Chains is going to get charged bottom lane. Kyo is everywhere on this map right now. He took down the tier 1 tower top. He killed the Clockwork. He TP'd bot. He killed the Gyrocopter. Fantastic start from him here on this Queen of Pain, and well, CSW is still struggling to put anything together, and this is where the fact that their supports are Bounty Hunter and Winter Wyvern is starting to look even worse. They just can't really make any plays. They've tried. It's not for want of trying, but unfortunately, just not a whole lot of kill potential here. So just gonna have to sort of hunker down, try and farm up on their SF and the Gyrocopter, and hope they can get back that way. SF is looking a little bit better on CS after clearing out his stack, has his treads, his wand, and his bottle up. So he can start making progress towards what looks like his mech, since he still has 2 Ironwood branches in his inventory after completing his magic wand. So it looks like that's what he's looking towards right now.
And in this game, they've got decent tower defending heroes, high ground defending heroes, Bounty Hunter. Once he hits level 6, he can start throwing out those tracks. If they do start racking up some kills, you know, good comeback potential there for CSW. Hero level wise, what are we actually looking at? Bounty's level 3. We've got a couple of heroes level 7 for MVP Phoenix. This Shadow Fiend, though, doing a great job over there. Spirit Breaker has hit 6, though. And with this, they'll smoke themselves up. Bane, Dazzle, and SB. Where are they heading? 2 points in Wave. 3 points in Brain Sap. This level 5 Bane has done a great job. Well, I guess they were on a dual lane up at top. 5 people from CSW mid, okay.
Yeah, no, they smoked under a ward. So CSW are actually just laying a trap right now. I think they're going to come down off the hill, but they scout out the Winter Wyvern, trying to decide if they actually want to end up going in here. Kyo waiting off to the side. The dust gets popped. They bounce Goda. They get the Nether Strike on him immediately. Hookshot flies in from 2D. March trying to turn around for another charge, but the call down drops on top of everyone. Febby self-graves in the midst of all of that. It looks like he's still going to be brought down here. They do manage to get somewhat of a turnaround. KP turns on the Pulse Nova and starts doing good damage, but the Haste Room from Wedding Crash gets him far enough away, and it's only the Leshrac alive to run away from this fight.
So Queen of Pain with ulti on cooldown still for 2 seconds now, so 10 seconds when the fight started. She blinks in, gets caught in the cogs. The self-grave from Febby, though, that's the big deal. Not graving the Queen of Pain when she was, there wasn't a small, frame where you had to do it. She dropped from 500 to 300 to 200, and there was plenty of time for Febby to get the grave down, but a little bit of panic there. Not quite getting it off.
Yeah, he might have double tap self-cast on as well, and just...
They're looking for change, though, down the bot lane. He's charged, they've got vision. He's going to get taken out instantly as QO blinks forward. The dying rocket barrage out from that Gyrocopter, not going to do too much, and they'll convert this into a tower. Where is the Leshrac? Over in the Roche pit.
KP just hanging out at the moment. I think just scouting out the rune there, since they don't have any dire vision on them right now, as QO is going to end up grabbing that double damage. MVP, rest of the lineup being left down bottom lane to pick up this completely undefended tier 1 as CSW continue to mill around on this mid lane. Hookshot goes flying in from 2D. He wants his kill on KP, but there's a Sonic Wave to greet him. Looks like they will still be able to burst down the Lesh. QO fighting this out, but they do have the Cold Embrace keeping 2D alive that little bit longer. The double damage on the Queen of Pain, however, is the difference maker as QO will continue pressing forward. March charging over to mid lane, gets the Nether Strike over onto 3-4-3. They do manage to drop the Winter's Curse and keep the Queen of Pain locked in position. March as well, hit by the homing missile. Goda comes in, grabs his level 6 out of that team fight, and well, what 2D started is going to end up nicely for CSW as they take a 2-for-3 trade overall and get some great golden experience up for them.
Yeah, definitely. Bounty hitting level 6 there. Not getting a track out, obviously, but still getting those levels and defending towers. Like I said, CSW, they've got the skill set, they've got the arsenal to do it. If MVP want to die for a kill like that, they're going to have to give up so much. So Winter Wyvern, he's not the biggest target here, but Queen of Pain with a DD, you kind of feel, hey, it's going to be an easy kill, going to be a quick kill. It's not. With call down, that last second Winter's Curse onto the Queen of Pain, definitely turning the tides there.
Yeah, I didn't catch it, but I almost feel like the Winter Wyvern may have gotten level 6 partially off the Lesh kill. And that sort of caught out MVP as they came in for that dive, because I think if you've opened the scoreboard and you've seen that the Winter Wyvern is level 6, you think twice about going all the way in underneath that tower and looking for those kills. But I mean, to me, that's always been the kind of player that QO is, so it doesn't come as too much of a shock. But his time on MVP has tempered things somewhat, and I feel like that may have been a slightly over-aggressive play there. You
remember QO for his Storm Spirit, Ember Spirit, TA, just running at people non-stop. His Queen of Pain, definitely a lot more aggressive, blinking forward, rather than holding it maybe to blink back, or like this. When you blink forward behind a tier 1 like that, if you get stunned, you get caught just before your blink is, or just before your blink is coming back off cooldown, then you are likely to die. If 2D was there to hookshot in, Jarakel to the cooldown, Queen of Pain was dead to rights.
Yeah, hookshot misses there. 2D was waiting over in the fog, smoked up with the rest of his team. They've got the Winter's Curse available. They're going to come in with the Arctic Burn. Febby getting auto-attacked now by QO, but the Nightmare comes in, and it's going to help keep them safe. Self-Grave also buying some space as the Sonic Wave flies back and hits 4. Wedding Crash from the low ground, throwing up raises. March, Nether striking and looking for the 2D kill, but a nice cold embrace keeps him alive for now, though the Lightning will finish him off. Chains just barely alive as the Lightning comes through from KP, and there's a grip from Nuts onto the high ground. Looks like Wedding Crash will be brought down by one last auto attack, but the Death Requiem going back the other way finds a 3rd kill for the CSW side. So 3 for 3 as the dust settles, and we're going to stay tied up 10-10 overall kill score.
And that wasn't even fight. I was just sitting there wondering who the hell comes out on top, and it's barely MVP in terms of experience, and it's barely CSW in terms of gold. There's like nothing in it.
Yeah, I think let's look at who picks up a lot of the gold there. So Lesh is the big winner. And end of the day. And he's almost got his Bloodstone up, just needs to finish the recipe pretty much, can even break up his Bassi if he wants to grab his Soul Ring, though that may have actually already been picked up on the courier. No, so he's gonna, he's doing exactly that. He's gonna disassemble the Ring of the Basilisk to finish his Soul Ring and then complete the Bloodstone.
There we go.
That's pretty big for your Lesh. The Shadow Fiend has his mech now, and a Void Stone picked up, so it looks like Wedding Crash is going to be going for a Yule Scepter build as the follow-up here. And I think fair enough. The BKB is good, especially against a lot of the damage coming out of the Lesh, but Dazzle is almost entirely physical. Spirit Breaker is pretty much entirely physical. And Bane is still going to be able to Fiend Script you, BKB or not. So probably an item that he considers a little bit later on if the Lesh starts getting scarier, but for the time being, I don't mind this.
Well, Clockwork is going for a Blade Mail, straight up. No drums, no sort of stat items or anything like that. Tranquils into Blade Mail. Quite often, this build is preceded by treads just to give you that little bit of extra strength. Maybe you pick up the magic wand. You have 1,000 HP, so effectively HP-wise, you don't have too much to return back with the Blade Mail, but depending on his timing, depending on where he can get this out, onto Sonic Wave, onto Fiend's Grip or something like that, something you don't want to cancel or stop or recast, you could do a lot of damage back to MVP.
Yeah, well, I mean, as always with the Blade Mail on Clockwork, it's a matter of timing and whether or not it's going to enable you to pick up some solo solo kills. QO farming pretty hard here down in the Radiant jungle. Needs to be careful. There's still creeps in between him and 2D, but the hookshot comes in. Can they get the Winter's Curse easily from 343? And that's going to be a very straightforward kill and a track kill for CSW. So lots of gold. Huge gold swing actually as QO loses 330 out of that. Did manage to buy up his second Necrobook recipe, but that was a really big deal for CSW.
Yeah, Queen of Pain Necro. This is something we haven't really touched on.
Yeah, let's talk about it.
It helps pushing, obviously, trying to break down these tier 2s. They have taken all tier 1s. Oh man, mid lane. Okay, we'll come back to this in a second as the Nightmare now March, Fiend's Grip and Nether Strike. Wedding Crash held in place, but the nuke damage still pumping through. Bebby, Self-Grave again, the Dying Requiem. Not going to do too much as KP is in the midst. Chains, the Gyro, trying to do as much splash as he can. He finally finishes off that Dazzle over on the side, but Nuts is still alive. Leshrac down for the count, but March is not going to give up now. He's full HP. He wants this kill. Maybe give it across to QO, but Nuts says no, it's mine. Necro on Queen of Pain. Situations like this, huh? Win a team fight, pop Necro book, take a tower.
Very easy, very straightforward. MVP, Febby, that was the self-grave. That was definitely the opportunity where he needed to look towards that. They invested so much in trying to burst down the Dazzle right at the very start of the fight. They weren't able to. Spirit Breaker, I mean, March went totally uncontrolled in that fight at all. Took a tiny bit of damage, but got multiple charges off and set up some great kills. And, I mean, have to commend Nuts, I think, for his play there. He nightmared up the Shadow Fiend, kept him in the river to the point where he wasn't able to retreat as the charge was coming in. Dropped a couple of good brain sap, survived through, and he's even just managed to get the positioning that he needs out of this pair of phase boots that he's grabbed on this Bane. It's not totally uncommon, but just wanted to point it out, as I think Nuts has been playing around with the phase boots pretty well.
Dire's middle tower.
Yeah, and then the way that charge works, obviously, if someone is nightmared, you charge through, that bash gets applied to them first, so you don't
get the damage instant, and,
and you don't get nightmared yourself. So that's there's quite a few nice interactions with nightmare in this game. You know, you've got the setup stun, the basic, the setup stun for Leshrac Split Earth, but also good against Winter's Curse.
Charge coming in mid. There's a hook shot over onto 2D, but he's been nightmared almost immediately. We've actually got the Shuriken bouncing through, but Febby manages to get off the grave, and Nuts is still alive, still actually hanging onto the braid set. That's going to be some extra survivability as that one lands. Call down is used from Chains to try and disengage out here as QO waits off to the side, drops the Sonic Wave, and he picks up the Courier with it, now jumping in, looks for the Scream. March charges through, it's onto 2D at the moment as Chains does drive back the Queen of Pain with the Rocket Barrage. Another Blink is going to get QO far enough away that Chains stops pursuit, and CsW will just continue to disengage. It's only the one kill. Lots of damage dealt, and March is still looking for more. 343 gets bashed right into the stun from KP, and MVP will still at the very least find one retaliation kill.
The race to the DD rune. Jaraculture and Queen of Pain both like, oh, it's a DD, this could win us the fight. QO gets there, finds it, but he's got to just keep on running. The Rocket Barrage and Homing Missile already did a large, well, Rocket Barrage did a large chunk of damage to him, Homing Missile chasing him down, so his only option was really to bail out after the aggressive blink in. Again, you know, popping Necro Book, getting into the midst. But Spirit Breaker, I've got to say, that charge across 4, that completely sent CsW into disarray. They had to split, they had to really reset their team fight, and Spirit Breaker now with a Midas.
Look at what they lost in this Courier when QO Sonic waved it.
Can I guess what it is? Is it the Yule Scepter for Shadow Fiend?
Yeah, it's pretty much the entire Yule Scepter for Shadow Fiend, and a pretty good chunk of the Blade Mail for 2D, though he just ends up buying it anyway, so he's got a random robe waiting for him once the Courier respawns. So it does at least have it picked up now, but that was a very big fight for MVP, and they're going to take back what was a pretty even game and move it into dire territory. 2K the experience lead, and about 2K the net worth lead as well.
You just buy drums. Do you keep it as a sort of casual robe, or do you consider then turning it into drums? Orchid is a little bit out there and would take a long time to build into. It's not bad against.
I think you just leave it as a as a robe, honestly. I don't think it necessarily dictates your next big item. For 2D, what's he going to pick up? I know I mentioned Glimmer Cape earlier, but on reflection, I mean, talking about the reasons that BKB is slightly less impressive for the Shadow Fiend, the same does somewhat hold true for the Glimmer Cape. We could also see it, though I feel like a Force Staff for 2D might be a bit more appropriate. So he can go in, maybe cog the Leshrac, and then Force Staff himself out. Meanwhile, MVP, we're taking Roshan, and they're going to come charging out. Chains in a little bit of trouble. Doesn't have his BKB just yet. Sonic Wave gets dropped onto 2. QO gets hit by the Winter's Curse, but it's not going to do all that much damage as Goda will be the first one to fall this fight. All down being dropped as we split up. And it looks like CsW want to try and disengage here if they can. There is a Glimmer Cape, but Wedding Crash won't be able to TP out. Gets bashed up by March, who keeps bouncing off the cogs. But Nice Grave comes in from Febby at the last moment. KP low, but still fighting. Does not manage to land the Split Earth, but still helps pick up that kill on the Shadow Fiend end of the day. And it will be a 3-0 as the Rocket Flare almost finishes off the Lesh. He may have actually been too healthy to get finished off, but yeah, no chance that he gets finished off by the rank 3 Rocket. He's actually quite tanky. Has a cloak, has his Bloodstone, and now a Yule Scepter picked up as well for KP.
That was a decent fight for MVP Phoenix, by no means clean, but the dodge out there, the Glimmer Cape from Winter Wyvern onto the Shadow Fiend, managed to stop the Shadow Strike, stop a little bit of damage from the Queen of Pain, and almost got him out there with a TP, but stunned up and stopped at the last second.
Yeah, that was pretty harsh. March has actually picked up a hand of Midas, so he's looking really good this game. Gyrocopter, I mean, lots of little items, but still no BKB just yet, though. That still feels... The two big AoE damage dealers, the Gyrocopter and the Shadow Fiend, definitely need BKB this game, especially because of how annoying the Necrobook can be, and I feel like that's the other aspect of the Necrobook that we haven't really talked about just yet this game for QO, that if you just sick it on the Shadow Fiend or on the Gyrocopter, it makes life very difficult for them, especially the Gyro. If Gyro doesn't have BKB, all of a sudden he can't be casting Rocket Barrages, he needs to be wary with the Flak Cannon, the call-down placement becomes even more difficult, and yeah, it just seems like a great pickup, honestly. I don't know what CSW can do from this position that they're in. They don't have any vision, really. There's one ward up towards the top side of the map. They haven't been able to take any of these tier 1s. And what was a relatively small golden experience lead after that last fight has been blown wide open. And not to mention that MVP still have this Aegis available on their Queen of Pain.
Yeah. Yule Scepter on the Shadow Fiend often indicates it's going to be a slow farming kind of period for the SF. It's really a farming item. Sure, it gives you aggressive and defensive options, but mana regen, movement speed, moving from neutral camp to neutral camp and spamming out razors or 2D does get scouted out by QO. The Shadow Strike's thrown, but he actually blinks forward and but there's no follow-up. QO now in a rough situation. This is what we were talking about. Force stamped out by his teammates, so there is some way out. QO is caught near the cogs, but Chains, he's the one that's in trouble. KP is now caught in the Winter's Curse, but he's not going to get taken out of the grave. It's great from Febby, keeping him alive. Sonic Wave. Who did it actually catch? It's actually Fiend's Grip is on the back end. Another strike with Dusk. Godot ripped apart with a lightning strike and Shadow Wave.
And 3-4-3 in trouble now. March going to keep on charging. He's tracked up. Nuts slides into position with his Force Staff and ready to get a few more auto attacks off to finish this one. Cold Embrace slows it a bit, but the Brain Sap is still there. Wedding Crash, meanwhile, is fighting down in the low ground. Nightmare going to help keep Febby alive. QO runs forward, trying to dodge the second raise, but Febby manages to crave himself right as the Death Requiem comes out, as MVP only lose the Aegis for that 5-man wipe.
There's that split second where you see the animation of Requiem and then the damage comes, a tiny frame afterwards. That was the period where Febby graved himself. That was tight.
Yeah, I think he was thinking about it while he was Nightmare anyway. He was like, okay, what's going to happen here? Shadow Fiend's going to die. He's going to pop like a pinata, and I guess I die as well? Oh no, wait, never mind. Shallow Grave's up. I'm going to be just fine.
Interesting. QO just blinked over a little stack of neutral creeps.
You know, you got to give the opponents some hope. I think.
It is a little bit risky to go and take that. The short respawn time is 25 minutes into the game. CSW all back in the land of the living bar Shadow Fiend, and there's one tier 2 remaining for them. So they've taken one tier 1. Well,
surely they don't fight for this tower. This tower on the Radiant is just so difficult to defend. You've got this tiny choke point that you have to go through to either advance up to defend the tower or to retreat out, and yeah, there are just great angles of initiation for the enemy team. It's almost the exact same story over on the Dire side, where you will often just not see the Dire defend this bottom tier 2 because of how crowded it is for them. But QO gets spotted here. He's got a BKB. They need to chain this really nicely. They do have the Winter's Curse, doesn't get the BKB off, but there's a grave from Febby, and the BKB TP out. This might not last long enough, but just barely. QO escapes back to the fountain. Costs him a BKB charge, but
the Necro units
well worth it.
Going ham. A decent amount of damage to Wedding Crash, but burning all of the mana from Godot, so a trip back to the base is necessary for him. March did charge up to top lane. He's got another 2,000 gold in the bank, so looking towards that BKB of his own. Roshan, when do we find out? Another 2 minutes? 2.5 minutes.
Yeah. So what else have we got? We've got a gem on the Bane. Going to continue to just take full control of this map. If we take a look at the vision, you can see that, well, we can see that CSW just can't see anything right now. And MVP have some great wards around the place. This one still has a fairly hefty duration remaining. This one's about to fade, but it's none too difficult for MVP to make their way out on the map and continue to get some vision down there. Is that BKB finally up on this Gyrocopter, but I'm not sure if this is necessarily enough to start changing the way that these fights go. At the very least, he now no longer has to worry nearly as much about the Necrobook, so that's a huge weight off of his shoulders in terms of how these fights are going to end up playing out. But a damage item still, damage and survivability item still going to be very important for him moving forward. Wouldn't be too surprised if you see something like, I guess just an S and Y. Maybe is the next pickup here for Chains.
Yeah, Yasha, Helm, Sanjin Yasha, something along those lines. Just plain stats and then maybe lifesteal if you want to throw that in there. He is running out of slots, which is often the worry when you do go for this very incremental stat-heavy build. Drums, Aquila, Phase Boots, Magic Wand. You've basically got 3 slots there which are dead in terms of mid-late game prowess. But you can always sell them, you can always get rid of them. Ring of Aquila probably going to be the first to go. Magic Wand you kind of want to keep. The fact you get that burst, heal back, dealing with heroes like Leshrac and Queen of Pain, turn things around at the last second, definitely going to be worthy. There's a BKB for Wedding Crash, the courier, going to deliver that over to him as they are pushing into this tier 2 at mid.
Wedding Crash needs to be careful. There is a charge coming in over the trees here, and MVP are TPing everyone back. They're not going to risk any kind of a trade. March BKB's up, and he's looking to fully commit here. Tootie misses the hook shot, and he's just going to have to wander around the corner. The track move speed makes it a little bit easier, and the Cogs actually keeping MVP back nicely as they get the Winter's Curse over onto QO and blow him up. KP retreating back with the rest of his team here, and it looks like MVP will only suffer the 1 casualty. But nicely played by Tootie. He missed the hook shot, but no panic whatsoever. Just walked around the corner and kept MVP back with the Cogs.
Yeah, QO, again, kind of wandered into 3, didn't pop his BKB, and there was no Febby to save him this time. So Febby was kind of looking out for Leshrac and Spirit Breaker, I think in particular, who was charging in. But without your Queen of Pain, without your BKB Sonic Wave Thrower, how are you going to defend this tier 2? This is great money for CSW to pick up. I don't think they can pressure high ground just yet. You know, they've got mech, okay, they've got BKBs, but looking towards Roshan, who do you think has the upper hand in a Roshan engagement?
I feel like MVP just because they should still have this gem
on
right now, so being able to just deward the pit and establish some vision there is going to account for a lot. CSW have a tiny bit of split push that they can throw out, potentially with the Rocket Flare to get lanes moving towards the MVP base, but they've still got tier 2s up, and heck, a tier 1 on bottom lane right now, so I don't think they're too stressed about the split push game, and that should mean that MVP do have the advantage in terms of getting the position on Roshan. In terms of the actual Roshan fight itself, I think the confined spaces might actually favor CSW a little bit more than they favor MVP. Queen of Pain in general, just because she's so mobile, doesn't really have that many problems landing a 2-3 hero Sonic Wave under most circumstances, but if you're clustered up in the pit and you get Winter's Cursed, and then a call down gets dropped on your heads, that's where MVP could very quickly lose the game. So,
I can definitely see MVP pulling the wraparound play rather than going directly into Roshan, you know, sort of come around from the side, find a pick off on the back, look for someone hiding on the high ground or in the fog. And actually, it's going to be CSW who will smoke over towards Roshan. The Dire have a courier in there, scouting out to see when he respawns. This situation here, they know QO's bot, pushing out this wave and farming, but they don't know where the rest of MVP is. They're going to walk straight in. Godot scouts them out, but here we go. Nether Strike Splitter's going to miss. Wedding Crash, Yules, and Requiem. Nuts is gone, and now 3-4-3 getting bashed up by March, but he's trapped in the cogs. Not allowed to fight anymore. QO on the back end. One more head on to Godot. We'll finish him off with Wedding Crash. Yules up. Splitter to follow, and he's locked in place. A good hook shot into the Leshrac by Tootie. Will try and hold this fight out a little bit longer, but CSW losing hero after hero. Chains, where do you go from here?
Yeah, Wedding Crash in some trouble, tries to cold embrace himself. Nice grave coming in, gonna help keep KP alive. CSW invested so much in trying to find that Queen of Pain kill, but QO still escapes at the end of the day. And now Chains continues pursuit, gonna drop another homing missile. March could turn around and charge back in, but I think it might be every man for himself. No, March is gonna decide to stick inside of the creep wave and go hunting for a bash. Does use the charge. We're gonna bounce with the shuriken toss. Can they bring him down in time? Just will be able to, and that is the gem also being picked up here by CSW. Nuts and Febby teaming up to try and get something done. There's 3 heroes down here. The call down being used. MVP don't have any of their cores here just yet. Lush is running down as quickly as he can. And MVP, the 2 supports just continuing to buy time. The little split earth not going to end up landing as 3-4-3 very nicely pulls the Nightmare off at the very last second to help save the gyrocopter. Very good play from him, but I think that fight, end of the day, still favors MVP.
Yeah, there are a couple of track kills in there from Godot, the sly little devil.
He survived the whole way through. Really nice play from from the Winter Wyvern. Oh yeah, and he gets away with the gem, so very big deal.
But the Nightmare swap out from Wyvern, like you mentioned, that was a great play, allowing the Gyrocopter just to sort of saunter away with 3,300 gold. Is that an Eagles? It's going to be Demon Edge, right? Yeah, Demon Edge over on that Courier. But I'm not too sure. MVP, the fact that their 2 supports could hold off 3 heroes for an extended period of time like that, they played that perfectly. Febby and Nuts were there for what, a good 7 or 8 seconds, just like, okay, we'll Nightmare this guy, Brain Sap the other, Grave, heal, throw everything out, dealing with cooldown and magical damage outburst. I don't know.
That does not bode well for CSW when just the 2 supports on MVP are keeping, what, a core and 2 supports.
And then KP distracted with Octarine Core, Yule Scepter, 18 Bloodstone charges. Does he need a BKB? Do you go just Boots of Travel now?
Yeah, I don't think you need BKB.
Because if you
can just go Shivas, honestly.
I mean, if you go BOTs, you can just run into a fight. Even if you die, you're pretty much instantly respawning, then TP back in.
I think he still needs some armor. The Gyrocopter right-click and the Shadow Fiend right-click are starting to mount somewhat. You know,
Presence of the Dark Lord.
We've just seen this Demon Edge picked up for the Gyro. He's going to have his Monkey King bar before too long. So, personally, I think I'd like to see a Shivas out of the Lesh. In terms of other options, Ghost Scepter isn't even necessarily. It is pretty dangerous, but you could pick one up here if you're KP and build it into a shotgun a little bit later on. But we'll have to hold that thought as 2D comes jumping in this time around. The hookshot is going to be successful, but it's only KP that he's tracked in the cogs, and he will be able to make it out. QO zoning them back with a nice Sonic Wave. Driving back 3-4-3, he was a big nuisance in the last fight. He wants to deal with him right here and now. The fight is splitting up somewhat chaotically. He's over on the backside. Nuts is getting chased down by Chains, but the first casualty of this fight is going to end up being Febby. Wedding Crash standing his ground, gets hit by the Glimmer Cape. 3-4-3 still somehow surviving through the assault of QO. He comes jumping off to the side, grips onto 2D as the homing missile comes chasing in. Still looking for the Queen of Pain. Chains a little bit further down, trying to turn around. Everyone is so goddamn low, but they're not dying just yet. QO in the midst of all of these Mud Golems, one last scream is going to find him a double kill as 3-4-3 waits on the high ground, nightmared up. Looks like he will be finished off by the Necrobook. Bit further down, KP's chasing after Chains, he's still on full HP and burns him off with the Pulse Nova. Did he die in that fight actually?
KP died.
And instantly respawned.
Pretty much instantly respawned, TP'd, and he did this long ass run where he ran through the Radiant Jungle all the way down past tier 1, just chasing Gyrocopter, give me the Yule Scepter, give me the Yule Scepter, just trying to cast it the entire time, finally catches him, and has enough movement speed and time to get there under the Yule Scepter, stun him up, and nuke him down.
I was kind of wondering what the hell CSW did with all of their time there, but looks like, okay, they did drop some burst on KP's head, but did not end up mattering too much in the end. Queen of Pain, I think, played that fight fantastically. QO identified that the Winter Wyvern was going to be a problem. 3-4-3, good counterplay out of him to just keep running around and avoiding him for as long as he possibly could, but did end up falling in the end. And it looks like QO, I think, just picking up a Hex here. Perhaps he can go blinking in with BKB active and Hex somebody down. Could be an immediate refresher, but that seems somewhat unlikely without the Aghanim Scepter already picked up.
Yeah, I can see that happening. Shadow Fiend, what do you reckon from him? 2,200 gold. Skadi seems okay here. Usually you see it against people who rely quite heavily on chasing you down and attack speed. Here, Queen of Pain does a fair amount of right-click damage. The Hex is complete now, but I could see the Shadow Fiend going for, you know, a Refresher, a Butterfly, an E-Blade. I think you mentioned one of those before, but it's a really difficult choice. Yeah. There are so many big luxury items that you could go for, but finding the optimal one for this situation.
Chains is just getting stunned randomly off to the side, forced to BKB, both below 50% HP. 2D doing his best to counter-initiate, but jumping onto March is not what he wants to do here. The Hex comes out onto Wedding Crash, but they miss the Sonic Wave. QO a little bit off the mark there, and 3-4-3 is going to pop down the Glimmer Cape and get him out. However, they did end up losing their Gyrocopter in the midst of all of this. 2D Cold Embrace, but I don't think there's any way out for him as MVP claim a second kill for this fight. And CSW scatter to the 4 corners of the earth trying to escape from MVP.
And now, do they rush? Do they take tier 2? Looks like it's it's back in.
Look at it, it's like the 3rd HP. Okay.
I thought maybe Kuro would stay down there and take out this, but it's just Immortal over on the Queen of Pain on the left rank. Who's going to be taking this? Looks like KP has his name on it. They'll pick that up.
Yeah, he's the high ground siege hero for them this game, so I think it makes a lot of sense to have the Aegis over on him. Tier 2 is very low bottom lane. Looks like Siege Creep is going to finish it off. QO comes in looking for the last hit, but will not grab it, and he's off towards top lane immediately. They go and grab a bit more farm there. Febby throwing a grave on him for no reason in particular. That wasn't actually mana that he could really afford to spend, but that's all right. There's actually a bottle waiting for him back at the rune. And looks like he's going to be able to maybe grab the 38-minute rune or something like that and top himself back off. KP's now got a BKB up, which is, I mean, it's good. There is quite a bit of magical damage still from CsW to contend with, but I think it's a tiny bit weird. We'll see what ends up happening.
Yeah, the two big disables, Hookshot and Curse, go through. And then damage-wise, flat cannon and right clicks from...
I don't know, what did he die to in that last fight? That was, I guess that's somewhat influencing his decision here. He's like, okay, look, last time I got hooked.
I guess it's like hook, cogs, razors. You get the triple raise kind of guaranteed if you get caught in cogs, so that makes sense.
Anyway, so Chains is very close to finishing up his MKB. You're going to just drop the call down here to grab a little bit of farm on the mid lane and space things out somewhat. Wedding Crash is getting up some good gold, 3.2k in the inventory for him. In terms of items, I feel like the greedy yet slightly stronger build here is to go for an actual damage item into a Satanic. The middle ground is definitely to go for a Scotty, but I don't know if the Scotty is enough damage at this stage.
He's got 3.6k by Crystallis now. How much does he need for buyback? It's getting very tight with that, though.
Yeah, it's such a tough call in this situation, and they're already starting to lose high ground somewhat.
Yeah.
KP is just getting topped off by the Dazzle, topped off by the Urn. BKB is going to get popped. Okay, he needs to commit somewhat here.
There's a glyph from CSW. That's interesting. I guess the fact that
BKB and Necrobook down. Okay, MVP need to chill, I think, for a little bit here.
I think it's because they know. Oh, well, no, that's weird. I was going to say they know about the blink on the Winter Wyvern, but that doesn't even matter.
Yeah, it doesn't really matter for KP. But I don't know if he switched his slots around after he picked up the BKB. And maybe move the Yules onto a different hotkey or something like that, but yeah, somewhat of a panic BKB from him. Tier 3 is down, but CSW holding onto the high ground. And MVP, are they going to end up waiting? 35 seconds for their Necrobook, 20 seconds for the BKB. Looks like those are both going to be delayed out for here as Wedding Crash just grabs a little bit more farm on the front lines. KP clearing out another wave. Everyone is getting tracked up slowly but surely as Godot continues to throw out these level 2 tracks. And Febby just waiting on the back lines along with Nuts and March. There's a Force Staff to get Nuts into position. Exact same story for Febby, and with the bottle that he's been loaned temporarily by QO, he's actually managed to pick up an Invis Rune. He's going to use that to come walking in here a little bit just to make sure that he's in position to get off the grave if they need it. QO is focusing on Godot to begin with. 2D misses the hook shot in the midst of this fight. The Winter's Curse goes down, but QO is just way too tanky. KP running through into the back line, soaking up everything. They get the grip over onto Wedding Crash, and it's 2 down already. Wedding Crash will pop. March and QO focusing down one more. Chains trying to retreat back to the fountain, and he will be able to, but MVP have broken through. There's a Yule Scepter onto the SF. His BKB is on cooldown. He's going to end up being dropped and didn't even buy an item after buying back. So no Shadow Fiend for 90 seconds, and all that remains to be seen is how much damage MVP can do to the base in that duration. Who can actually join the Gyrocopter? 20 seconds to the Clockwork, 20 seconds to the Bounty Hunter. Clock's just gained buyback off of passive gold, but
Shadow Fiend down
might be it.
Over a minute.
Yep.
They'll lose 2 lanes of racks here. Interesting that MVP not going for the tier 4s, but then, you know, Clockwork, if he comes back, hook, cogs, traps you by tier 4, call down to follow. Things can get a little bit messy, so MVP going for the safe route, taking down racks by racks. The TP aggressively here, 2D, hookshot, insta-hex onto the Clockwork. The cooldown going to land onto 3, but Nuts looking to finish off for that Clockwork. Febby ready with a grave. Great, actually nightmared up, but 2D's dropping inside his own cage. Chains, Rocket Barrage, KP going to drop Aegis Immortal Expended, and it will come back to life in a couple of seconds. March bouncing Shuriken from hero to hero as MVP. Oh, losing a lot of HP. Denial out from Nuts with the Nightmare. What a play. But KP still in the midst there. the damage out with the chains, no buyback available. So you've gone from having one core down for 70 seconds to now having another gone for over a minute.
And Nuts just trying to escape here, getting Urn down. Splinter Blast not going to finish him. He could have just auto-attacked. 343 is now going to die to Rax Creep. Does manage to blink over and get the Urn to finish off the kill on the Bane. Now trying to hide in the Glimmer Cape. And looks like might be able to escape. No, not the Wrath of QO. He comes blinking in with the Hex.
There's 6,400 gold on the last rank.
Oh my god. Okay, KP's had a very good game here on Lesh. 22 Bloodstone charges built up. I think they probably just... Oh, actually, Tier 3 top is still full HP, but Hero does have his Necrobook available. And it looks like MVP gonna take a swing at things here. As soon as they damage the Tier 3, 2 buybacks coming out of the 2 CSW supports. Hookshot does fly in from 2D, looking towards KP. They've got the Winter's Curse as well. He needs to turn on his spells so he can start lifestealing back up. He's healing somewhat, manages to Yule Scepter himself, and he's healing all the while. Wedding Crash, a few more auto attacks, won't be able to finish him off. And Kuro now coming back in with another Hex. Is BKB still active? Godot finds KP on the back lines and brings him down. Kuro's looking for that kill as his teammates are slowly making their way in here. But CSW fighting as a unit. Wedding Crash keeps on auto-attacking away. He's just picked up a Yasha with a little bit of gold. 343 Cold Embrace on himself, but that's going to leave Wedding Crash to die. Nightmare over onto chains, but KP has already returned to this fight.
Lesh is mad.
Oh, that is going to be the GG called. So MVP end up taking this one 2-0. What a performance.
They finally kill KP and it's like, we did it, boys! And he TP'd straight back into the fight.
He's like, hey guys, I had 23 Bloodstone charges. I hope you didn't miss me for too long.
I'm instantly back in there, but this was a much better performance from CsW. Their lanes were a lot stronger. Their actual decision-making in game was very good. It just came down to a couple of key fights where MVP, you know, fought around Roshan, found the key choke points, and some very good sort of juggling of